My name is Satoe Fukushima. I came to America in 2001 from Osaka, Japan, and I've been making art that hits the point of the people who didn't even notice that there was a feeling for it or so. A lot of it, I use a lot of the languages, money, theories, food, racism, the racial identities or identity politics.
And how has your background sort of shaped your art?
I think it's been always language was my main focus, that not only just the English, Japanese, but Japanese or whatever the language is in, we all switch back the way we use the languages around the people. So I focus on that like nuance or the difference of words.
What would you say overall your work is aiming to say?
My work is, first of all, I consider myself a post studio artist. So whatever I want to say it, I have a concept first and start thinking of what kind of a medium to use and what kind of combination or what kind of a misplacement. So the concept is a very beginning. So there's always some kind of a message or like try to emulate that emotions or emulate that being a misplaced kind of a feeling.
You certainly use a ton of different materials. You currently have a virtual show going on and your piece, Helios Animalis Installation Documentation. It's a photo series that you've created, and I love the list of materials that you have. You have listed helium-filled balloons, kids, parties, mess, instant films, blue tape, measuring tape, and all of the balloons are also endangered animals. And your comment on the piece is that helium can soon become overused and an extinct element itself. So, how do you sort of come to deciding on using all of those different materials?
Yes, I also like that didactics because didactics is usually what the galleries or museum add on to it. And a lot of the time, if there's like more than one or two material, they just did a mixed medium. But mixed medium actually hides all those interesting opportunity of saying something. So in that case, I usually use didactics as kind of a main, and a visual is just a supporting a document for that didactic. So the helium balloon will be extinct because it's actually, if they appreciate the value of it, one helium balloon has to be like $250. So nowadays they cut with oxygen so that helium percentage is a lot lower than before. So I think definitely soon we're not gonna have that helium filled animals for sure. So the helium balloon itself is endangered species. And I thought it was a very interesting comment, just juxtaposing like real animals versus this element. So
Mhm.
I thought that was interesting to point out the element is endangered species. So that as an artist, I'm like try to adapt to the remote show because it wasn't happening before the pandemic. That's why I called it the documentations of helium. I mean, the party or the installation, not actually the photo isn't actual itself. So it's really like a playing with the words, playing with the didactic, because the didactic will be used or will be placed in like almost the same equal impact within that website.
The work that I originally saw of yours, the cakes that you had created for the Nomad show, on the paper describing your work, you had the quote, expectation and betrayal are those essences of comedy, but also tragedy and cakes.
Mhm.
And it seems like some of your work really, it tries to set up an expectation and then finds a way upon further viewership to almost betray the viewer but intrigue them more. Would you be able to describe your like the cakes that you had created a little bit more?
Yes, so I made it that uh, wedding cake kind of decorated a cake. So it's kind of like a birthday cake where the people's photos on printed, but instead of people smiling, they were dead. Or my mother was being intubated, or my grandfather in coffin. My friend is holding her dying father's hands. So I wanted to create it that uh, weird feeling of betrayal and all that. And it actually started with a kind of a tongue-in-cheek kind of commentary of calling a Nomad show as a post-pandemic show, as we are still in the middle of it.
Hmm.
Originally, I wanted to use the historical photos of people being shot or dead, but while I was making it, my grandfather passed away. So I shifted to make it very personal, especially because that time of the pandemic, we had to say goodbye remotely. And because living here away from my family, I couldn't attend any of a family emergency in person. And I realized that was not special case for me anymore. Yeah, and then like some people actually thanked me, that to my surprise, because they felt they were given the opportunity to talk about it.
You do bring in motherhood a lot as a theme in your work. Could you describe some of your work that was, I guess, questioning the concept of becoming a mother?
The first comment commentary on the birth is that Gachapon Baby, that where the toy capsule of vending a machine that produced a baby. So it was my idea or my commentary of how to free our gender role. So
Mm.
it actually requires 4 quarters. So you can actually share the custody with your loved ones. Like, it's the same with our DNA, how like our XY and XX genes mix and all. So
Mhm.
instead, you can do 2 coins of each other to make one baby. So you can make, it doesn't matter like who you choose. It actually frees up a human from this physical gender role. And also the second one I made was after, no, it was actually, I did the performance during my labor. So basically on that day of labor, I wore makeup to the hospital with all the like really like thick makeup. And then as I go through the labor, all the makeup is like melting away from my face. So I had a really like a bad lipstick and mascaras all making the panda eyes and everything. And I have my friends photo document me of my actual birth. And so basically I made the scrapbook about that birth. And within it, I have like kind of a commentary of my fear or my fantasy lesbian crush on one hot nurse who took care of me. Um, it's really like crude emotions as I go through becoming a pregnant person to mother. With that piece, my aim was to burst that romanticism of womanhood and motherhood. That Mother Nature doesn't come out with your placenta or whatever, because the motherhood or Mother Nature has to be nurtured as you grow or raise a child. And it is okay that you don't have a mother instinct kicked in immediately. A lot of women who go through that maternal blue is being crushed by that kind of romanticism.
Would you say that some of your work also encourages people to question their own labels that they've applied to themselves? Because it seems that much of your work points out that these labels are things that people subscribe to, not necessarily what the people actually are.
Right. Yeah, I did that performance video, video performance. What's the name? You Put It On Me, I think was the title. I was wearing the colorful whipped cream and then put the plexiglass that is clear and unseen from the video camera. And then I just, put on my face on it and lick away that whipped cream. And it was my attempt to use my mouth to remove all the whatever impression you put it on me. So that cream was in a way of like first impression. So obviously I'm an Asian and I'm talkative. So I use a lot of language to remove that whatever you have it on me. But in the end, it's about a 40 minutes video of me trying to lick away all the whipped cream. But because of the whipped cream's oil content, the plexiglass being a very how can I say smoky because it has oil.
Oh, right.
So you in the end you still don't see me.
Even though you're able to describe your personality, people can't truly see
Right,
who you
because it's a
are.
mulky and then it's impossible you see each other in the 100% understand.
Yeah.
So it's the same idea of like we cannot share the sorrow or grief with that
Mm.
cake piece. So I have that continuation of failure in communication.
Mm. So, as you're exploring performative work, what do you see your future work developing into? Is there a path that you sort of have in mind?
Yeah, I'm actually playing that game called Ebony Return of the King. And
Mm.
what's fascinating about it is basically it is the MMO, massive multiplayer online game. And within that, it has so many modes of communications that you can talk with your peers in the group or other groups. So what gaming community does is fascinating to me because we start having this kind of virtual communications or virtual relationship because of that technology is being boomed. The virtual communication or virtual reality gives so many opportunity to talk about gender or identity politics because we are removing all the labels, but we within the game we actually try to build up your own character, either giving a false or real gender or
Hmm.
gender identity, sexual orientations. They claim themselves white or yellow or whatever they want to claim. Some people say it's like you wouldn't burn my castle if you know me in person. And then that word itself is so fascinating because you remove this, but you try to
Right.
come back to that reality.
Thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time for this.
No, thank you. It was fun.